You're watching TVC Breakfast. Let's get to our next discussion now. The West African Examinations Council, WAEC, has successfully conducted the May-June 2022 West African Senior School Certificate Examination, and the results are released. For the staff of the exam body, the conduct of the examination was not a walk in the park, but they were able to ensure that it was successfully conducted despite the challenges they encountered in some states. They were also able to release the result 45 days after candidates sat for the exams. Let's bring you this report.
According to the West Africa Examination Council WAEC, a total of 1.2 million candidates, which is 76.36% of the 1.6 million candidates that sat for the 2022 Senior School Certificate Examinations SSCE, obtained credits and above in a minimum of 5 subjects, including English language and mathematics. The statistics represent a decrease of more than 5% in the performance when compared to the 81.7% pass rate recorded in 2021.
1,222,505 candidates, representing 76.36%, obtained credits and above in a minimum of 5 subjects, including English language and mathematics. Of this number, 597,811, that is 37.34%, were male candidates, while 624,694, that is 39.02%, were female candidates.
WAEC Head of National Office Patrick Aragon said results of 365,564 candidates, representing 22.83% of the total number of candidates that sat the examinations, are being withheld due to cases of examination malpractice.
The activities of road website operators and the so-called miracle centers did not go unnoticed and unpunished, as the council was able to identify and apprehend these unpatriotic fellows through the help of security operatives. A few supervisors and invigilators who were caught aiding and abetting examination malpractice were also brought to book. They are currently chatting with the police all over the Federation. The council, on its part, through the Nigeria Examinations Committee, will mete out appropriate sanctions to affected supervisors through the various state ministries of education.
He announced that the WASSCE results were released 45 days after the last paper. Sharon Ijason, TVC News.
And joining us now to discuss this is the head of Nigeria National Office of WAEC, Patrick Aragon. It's nice to have you join us in the studio.
It's my pleasure being with you here this morning.
Great. Now, it's quite interesting that I remember the days we write WAEC, at our days, you write and then you have to wait for months, sometimes 2-3 months or even 5 months before the results come out. And this time we're hearing about 45 days and then the results are out. Talk to us basically about some of the changes in WAEC before we get into some of the other deep issues.
Thank you very much. You can call that a revolution in educational assessment.
Right.
Today, we have what we call massive deployment of technology in the conduct, processing, and release of results. So those days, you will write your exam, as you rightly said, and you wait on end for the result. But today, 45 days after the last paper, you have your result. And 90 days after the release of results, you have your certificate. Because we have state-of-the-art facilities that we deploy in the conduct, in the processing of examination results. For example, when it comes to printing of certificates, just 3 weeks, almost 2 million certificates you print in 3 weeks. We have state-of-the-art machine called the RICO machine printer. 3 weeks, you get your certificate. But you see, Nigeria is a big country, and we should be proud of what we have. We set the pace. There are 5 member countries of WAEC. I can tell you that Nigeria leads. Always the first to release, although the date for release is set, but we always meet it. And printing of certificates, some others will have backlog, but Nigeria is not like that. We don't have any backlog of certificates. For school candidates exam, as I said, 90 days after the conduct of the exam, you have your certificate. And for the private candidates exam, we now have what we call the Certificate Management System, ESATMAN. whereby the candidate applies online for your certificate, and it is printed and sent to where you want to collect it. Right now, we are not giving it to you in your house because we have not developed to that extent. We take it to the nearest WAEC office to you, just stroll in there and collect it. So these are the major innovations we have introduced to ease the process and to aid our service delivery to the growing population of Nigerian youths yearning for WAEC certificate. So it is the massive deployment of technology that has really brought this about, which was not there.
In those days when we used to write exams, when I did my WAEC in Government College, really, I used to wonder how, when they were gathering the papers, how would they transport it? Where is the person who is going to assess math or who is going to assess geography? How are they going to sort all of these things out? You know, where is the person? You know, when you are on holiday waiting for the results, say, where is the person is in Lagos marking my English? Or where is the person is in Calabar marking my literature? Or something like that. And some people will want to know, you know, it's some of the things that the imagination understands.
Yes. Even personally, I thought those working in WAEC, let me not say people, we thought they were spirits. We thought they were spirits. It was just an abstract term, WAEC. We didn't know.
WAEC was like a god.
That time.
Was,
well,
you know.
because you now know why, that's why you are not thinking it's no longer God, it's still God. For those who are out there seeking this thing, they still see WAEC
Because
as God.
like God, you don't see the person.
Exactly.
You are praying.
That
You can't
is
see.
it.
You
And
don't know
hoping.
whether he will answer your prayer or not.
Exactly. Even those of us inside, some of us still don't see all those processes. You go into the exam hall, you write your exam. When we are conducting an exam, we break the state. Each state, we break it into units, manageable units. We call them custodian points. So that you'll be able to transit between the collection point and the school where you'll be supervising without taking much time. We give out papers 1 hour before the commencement of the paper. So the supervisor comes to the custodian center. It's a small unit. You can have about 20 centers attached to that center, 20 schools, or you can have about 28 schools, or you have about 35 schools. And once it is more than 27 schools attached to a center, we put 2 staff there to be able to quickly attend to the supervisor. So you collect your papers, you go to the exam hall, you conduct the exam, and you return the scripts back to the custodian center. And then from there, we go on daily basis. Those days, you used to sleep overnight. If you do that today, you shoot yourself on the foot. So we go every day to deliver these materials. We collect the work scripts back to the office. And then we do what we call control, which is computer controlled as well. The allocation of the scripts to examiners. You don't even know the examiners. I don't know them. When you allocate scripts to a particular examiner, for example, it may be going to Sam Omashe. Your name will not be there. It's the number. At the market venue, when you go there, they will use your number to identify your parcel. That's when that parcel will have a name. And you don't mark the scripts in Lagos State, for example. The schools in Lagos State, you don't mark the scripts in Lagos. They go to another state. So that's what we do in order to reduce human influence. And I'd like to tell you that all over the Federation, like this exam we just conducted, we use over 79,000 examiners.
How do you pick them?
79,000.
How do you select them?
Yes, through schools. That is why one of the reasons why some schools perform very well. You have in a school, for example, you can have about 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There was a school in Kano when I was in Kano. They had 12 team leaders, not just examiners. They have over 30 examiners in that school. And they have 12 team leaders. How will such a school not perform? If you are an examiner, you teach better than the teacher that is not an examiner. That's
Because
why,
you know what the teachers, what the exam will look like.
You know what is required, what the questions are required the students to do. So that's why we appeal to schools. We appeal to the government. Send your teachers to the market venue. We have a 3-day training exercise. Even though you are not going to get crystal man, we call them in the common parlance gate crashers. Participate in the teaching, in the training, so that you know how to teach better. And your candidates or your students will always perform better.
When I was in school in Uveli, we had 2 history teachers who were examiners. who marked WAEC papers. And it was when I got to the class 4 and class 5 that I actually met them. And one of them, Edenya, it was one that broke it down to you. It's not just, history is not just telling stories. It's about points. And we tell you, and when we write an essay, you told you wrote a beautiful essay and so on. They say, no. All this you wrote here is just one point. So sometimes we don't know. And don't you think that this thing should be democratized? That a system should be created to convey to all students what you require to pass, so that it doesn't become an elite thing, that if you don't go to a school where you have examiners, everything is here. I remember when I was also waiting to do my school study, someone else say in the Daily Times in those days, say on a full page, examiner was talking about what you need to do to pass exams, to write essays in school cert. And it was like gold to me to look at it and, read it and say, look, so this is finally, I can finally see and touch one of those ghosts.
Imaginary.
Yeah.
Beautiful. You know, the Bible says, my people perish
For lack of knowledge.
Lack of
Yes.
knowledge.
You see, many people fail because they lack knowledge. What you are saying now is precipitated in what we call Chief Examiner's reports. It's there. At the end of every examination, when they finish marking, all the Chief Examiners will compile reports in their various subjects, and it will now be compiled into a book. What is this? The strength of the questions, what the students are required to do to pass, what they are required to do to avoid failure. All the strengths and weaknesses, they are all there, and the right answers are there. So they are all compiled. It's there. It's called the Chief Examiner's report. You can buy it for your child. I bought it for my child. You can buy it for your child. You can access it online.
Oh, my salary is 30,000 naira. I can barely feed. How do I get the money to buy the Chief Examiner's report?
It's just 2,000 plus. It's not costly. And if you say education is costly, then get ignorance.
No, but
All right.
how many of them, how many parents and how many children know that there's such a report?
Schools know. We make schools to buy 2 copies every year. We make them to buy, once they are registering their students for the exam, we make them to buy 2 copies of the Chief Examiner's report and 2 copies of the syllabus. So they are expected to make copies available. You know, if I'm teaching government now, you make photocopy of government and give to me. The one teaching English, you make copies available to that. That is why.
So they cascade to the students that way. Okay.
Cascade down to the students. So, and the students themselves can buy. You will be surprised.
Are they available? The students really buy these things? Are they aware?
The schools are supposed to tell them. We tell the schools.
Do they?
We tell the schools. Some may, some may not. We tell the schools. When we go on sensitization program, we also tell the candidates.
Okay, let's talk about the issue of abuse of that issue now, because we've heard of the issue of special centers. If you want to pass WAEC, there are certain schools you register, and then you know that your result is going to come out in a certain way. Talk to us basically how legal that is or how illegal that is. Where is the point of abuse and where is the right point?
Thank you very much. I'm glad that this issue is coming up. Miracle centers exist only in the imagination of the individual, assuming that there are miracle centers. It is not in our dictionary. Miracle centers are illegal. As far as WAEC is concerned, they are non-existent. But there is no denying the fact that there are some schools that are miracle centers. But to say that WAEC gives legal status to that is not true. What happens is that we have some called the quack schools, especially private schools. There may be 1 or 2 government schools that fall into this category, but majority of them are private schools. So in my own categorization, I say upper private schools, they are the top echelon. Then you have the middle private schools, then you have the lower and the lower. So you find them in the lower, and sometimes in the lower. What are those centers? These are schools that do not really do any teaching and learning. We call them examination centers. They are just mere examination centers. They bamboozle their way through. They get registered as operating schools. They go through the ministry. It's interesting because I know you are going to ask me, why did you recognize such a school in the first instance?
Of course, you already
It
know.
is not WAEC. It is the State Ministry of Education concerned. We cannot recognize any school that is not recommended to us by the State Ministry of Education in any state of the Federation. But we even go also to carry out a check before we can say registered or not registered. And what happens? What some schools do is to go out and borrow science equipment from neighboring schools and deceive you into recognizing them. Immediately you finish the inspection exercise, they take them back. And you discover that when the exam comes, they have nothing. But you now also ask me, what do you do? Yes, we descend on such schools. We carry out what we call 5-yearly inspection exercise. Every 5 years, we carry out inspection exercise. But every examination diet, we carry out inspection exercise. When we send you to Korodu, for example, you go there, you go around schools, we say on the day of science subject like chemistry, like physics, go to students to school, go and see if they actually have the facilities. When you come back, you write a report that they don't have the facilities to take chemistry. We withdraw chemistry from them. So we have a very robust monitoring and inspection system that enables us to classify schools, those that are qualified to take our exams and those that are not qualified to take our exams. And of course, when they perpetrate exam malpractice, you see that is their stock in trade. Perpetrating exam malpractice, they don't ever get their results.
Yeah, you confirm.
All right.
You're talking of the Miracle Center and all the things that happened there. But the role of parents are very crucial in all of these. They are the ones that even do the miracles, and they're not. There's this writer, a Russian writer, Fyodor Dostoevsky, in his book, The Brothers Karamazov. He says, faith comes out of miracle and not miracles out of faith. So you believe the miracle, that's why it's a miracle. I wake up this morning and my headache is gone. Oh, it's a miracle because I believe it is, not because I slept it off or something like that. And Oloyede himself, the head of JAMB, has always talked about the complicity of parents. How do you guys handle it at the level of WAEC?
It's so unfortunate, Sam, that we still have gullible parents in the 21st century that can easily be deceived.
Or mischievous ones.
They are mischievous and they are destiny destroyers. Those who don't mean well for their children. You go out there to buy expo or to source for expo for your children. You give your children money to source expo and they are attending good schools. But when it is time to write their WASSCE, that is the West African Senior School Certificate Examination, you take them away and take them to a so-called miracle school in a bush area where they believe that WAEC inspectors will not come to, Ministry of Education inspectors will not come to. They take them away.
It's like a pilgrimage.
Yes, they're back on pilgrimage. So especially, during JAM, they will come from the village and go to another village.
But that's what their parents also do. The parents also travel far to go and get healing, go and get... so it's the same thing that you are going there to get their miracles.
So religious pilgrimage and educational pilgrimage.
Exactly.
So that is what they do nowadays. You see, so good schools like made, they could have about 200 in SS3. But when it comes to enrollment time, it will just come down to about 90, 80. Where are the rest? They have all, the parents have withdrawn them. They have taken them to so-called miracle centers. And they end up ruining the lives of these candidates, of these children. They throw their future into jeopardy because they will never get any result. We have a monitoring system. Even when we are not there, you think we are not there, you can do whatever you like. You write on the board, you dictate to the candidates. You are just wasting your time. For example, we have an app. We call it IDP, Item Differential Profile. If you cheated in the objective item test, we catch you.
How do you detect
You would think that is impossible. In technology, they say whatever is thinkable is doable. Yeah. So we have done it. And it's in bits. Once your papers are being scored in the objective, anyone that cheated will be detected. And so what we do, we now transpose that onto the essay paper. We now write out the center numbers and the candidate numbers involved. We now send to the marking venues. Examiners look at this scripts to see if there is a correspondence between the objective and the essay. And I can tell you 99.9% there's always a correspondence. So that is how we carry them. And
you get the point where you have to use biometrics so that Citizen James, who is 50 years old, does not come and write for Citizen John, who is just 17.
Yes, biometrics is incorporated in the registration process. Okay. So ab initio is there. It's just to detect impersonators. So you can't come into the exam hall unless with the connivance of the supervisor. You can do everything on earth. If the supervisor wants to sabotage you, he will just sabotage you.
Because there's a candidate even for one of the governorship states now where they said they found out that he wrote an exam in a university and his handwriting in that exam does not correspond with his handwriting. Maybe he did a 100% change in handwriting.
It could be a miracle. Miracles happen.
And we do all these things. You know, we check your handwriting. We check so many things. It's not that you cannot read the same textbook, you cannot read the same notebook and write the same thing. No. You can write the same thing. But we have a way of detecting it. So there are two levels. We can catch you in the examination hall. You can come in with a crib, anything written that is a crib. You can come in with a textbook, you can come in with a cell phone, and you are caught, you go in for it. But if you are not caught there and you think you are lucky, that's what the argument. Some schools, some parents, they will say, but my child is a very good child. It was not caught in the exam hall. Somebody was telling me about 2 days ago. But the school was not told that this child was involved in any exam malpractice. I said, we don't owe it a duty to tell the schools. If you even go out of your way to tell the school, oh, I've caught this candidate cheating, they will be begging you, know the Nigerian way. So they are not supposed to be told. But the person in the examination hall conducting the exam, the supervisor, will fill the necessary forms. And if the principal's attention is required, there's a column, he will also complete it.
But how do papers get leaked? Where that morning, if it is mathematics or English, for instance, the papers are all over the place?
Permit me to say this before answering that question. There was another question that preceded that, the two levels, how we detect examination malpractice. It's either in the examination hall or at the marking venue. So when you are not caught in the examination hall, you will not be arguing, but I was not caught, I was not caught. The examiner caught you at the marking venue. So that is that. Then you said leakage. That is a very bogus term.
Okay.
The ghost of examination leakage was buried as far back as the 1980s in Nigeria.
Whoa.
There's nothing again called examination leakage.
Okay, so what do we have?
Take it to the bank.
Okay.
So examination leakage is said to occur when you have knowledge of the questions, for example, of a paper that will take place tomorrow. Today, you have knowledge of the questions. That's leakage. Okay. Also, reasonable hours before the commencement of the paper. That's leakage. But once the paper commences, or is about to commence, 1 hour before the commencement of the examination, we have already released the materials to the supervisor. They are no longer in our hands. So you can no longer talk of leakage. What you now have is foreknowledge.
Foreknowledge.
That is what people
it's what they call the rhetoric of disguise. What you are saying is that it leaked, but it didn't leak from us.
No, it didn't actually
leak from us.
It didn't leak.
It's only 1 hour.
It didn't leak. Let me tell you. It didn't leak.
Is it not just semantics?
No, it's not semantics.
Okay.
So leakage, foreknowledge cannot happen before leakage. And leakage cannot happen after foreknowledge.
But leakage causes foreknowledge.
Leakage does not cause foreknowledge.
Because when it leaks,
we all have the knowledge.
Let me tell you how they happen.
Okay.
Now, something could leak from the press house. You say it's leakage. And once there's leakage, there's collateral damage, which means everybody has knowledge. You can no longer administer that paper. Or it may be administered, but the credibility is low.
So what you are saying in fact is that when it gets to the school, some of the teachers or the examiners may get wind of what it is, and the student has about 30 minutes to go and look at the textbook.
Exactly.
The question is
exactly.
What are the 3 levels of government?
Yes.
And so on.
Yes.
Do you know it? Better get down. That's what I just heard.
Exactly.
Within 20 minutes, you get
Exactly.
the answer, and then you go and write.
Exactly what I'm trying to explain to you now. What do these bad supervisors do? They collect these papers. Immediately they get to the examination hall. You know, you are supposed to show these envelopes, packed envelopes to the students, to the candidates.
I want to open.
They come, invite about 3 of them to come and say, oh, nothing is tampered with and all that. These things are packed in securely locked security bars from the custodian center. I explained to you the meaning of custodian center to the examination hall. And then we have a monitoring witch spirit. We call it silver pest. Candidates, identification, verification, and examination management system. Silver pens.
So how does that work?
This silver pens was this called candidates, identification, verification, and management and examination post-management system.
Okay.
Well, which are not wizard.
So this is a machine, it's a tool that is used to monitor the movement of the supervisor from the collection center down to the examination center.
Hall.
Okay.
But we are human beings. I don't want to talk about that.
So that is the
And when you get to the examination hall, this device is used to take attendance of candidates and to do some other things. So the supervisor opens the questions, the question packet. He brings out the questions to distribute to the candidates, and immediately he brings out his cell phone and snaps it. Some of these supervisors belong to syndicates. They have what we call role websites on Instagram, on WhatsApp, and other platforms. They are paid pittance. They pose these questions to designated platforms. The candidates, some of them subscribe to this platform. They openly advertise with their bank details and all that. They post these things. That is where others get it from. And so they have a syndicate. They solve this thing and they start sharing. That's what you call leakage. That's what you see. That's not leakage. That's not knowledge. We have already taken it to the examination hall. And you ask yourself the question, examination has already started. That is why you have many people, many candidates failing now. Examination has already started. What time do you now have to assess and to make use of it? That is why you see some of them, they don't come into the examination hall in good time. There is a regulation. If you are 30 minutes late into the examination hall, you will no longer be allowed to write that paper. But how many supervisors carry out this rule?
But if it's 30 minutes, I can take 20 minutes and read all I want.
That is what I'm
saying. If I've already prepared and then I come in and
but that is because you are a fast reader.
That is what I'm saying.
At their level, they're still struggling to know how to read fast.
No, generally, maybe I could have read generally. And if it's...
Okay, you're narrowing down now to the specifics.
I've read it before. Now I want to know everything.
Because you have the questions now, so you know where to focus.
Let me say this. In a society where everything was well, where everything was out fine, where everybody keeps to the rule, examination is starting by 9 a.m. Everybody is supposed to be in the examination hall. So who is going to be outside? So some will wait for the other school to start. For the other school to start, they will stay somewhere.
And wait.
And
postpone the start.
They have a syndicate in that hall that will post something. And then those people outside will now pick it. And then they will now be running into the examination hall. And I can tell you, many of them have missed the exam. Because once you are 30 minutes late, you are not supposed to write the exam.
As I said, you need 29 minutes.
You just waste your time.
You just need 29
all right.
minutes. Okay, go ahead. I have a question that really interests me.
Okay.
You said because you said the assessment shows that it was 5% poorer than the year before.
2021.
And the argument for last year's performance of 80-something% was kind of nebulous. Some people say maybe it was because students were at home for most of the time during the lockdown, and that made them study more. I mean, can you shed light on why it dropped now and against
That-
although this one is a very good one.
Yeah.
And they also talk about the fact that these people are, this something percent is quite high. Why are they saying the educational system in Nigeria is bad? Or is this that the teachers are more liberal?
That explanation was not nebulous at all. It was very, very scientific. Look at it this way. There was complete compulsory lockdown. So we all stayed indoors. You stayed with your children. You turned out to be an automatic teacher. You stayed with your children. You became a teacher. You remembered that you read history. You started teaching your children history. You remember you read English. You started teaching your children English. I read political science. I started teaching my children government. That was what happened. And many state governments were teaching using radio television,
TV. That's true.
And then we had two sources. We had what we call WAEC Connect, and then we have what we call the interactive portal. Once you enroll for our examination, you will have access to these two portals. And we loaded these two portals with learning materials, that these candidates had access to. So from a multiplicity of sources, from the government source, from the parent source, then from WAEC source. So they had a lot. And because everybody was already dealt with by this hydra-headed monster called COVID-19, nobody wanted to suffer a second disaster. So everybody wanted to make success out of it. And that was why that performance was high. It was quite scientific. It was not manipulated. It was based on the real performance of the candidates. And then there was nowhere to go to be looking for expo. Remember?
Exactly.
Nobody went out to look for expo. But today we are free a little.
Or COVID to catch you.
Or COVID to catch you. but today,
So COVID became an examiner.
yes. But
It
today,
became the witch.
but today you are a bit free. You can roam looking for this and that. And so they were wasting their time.
We
They were
understand
not
about
reading.
all right. We understand about 10% of the results were withheld due to some practices or other things, related to it and all of that. Talk to us. What becomes of a situation where results are withheld? Is it a period of investigation and then you release the results eventually, or what happens in that space?
And to add to it, how does the WAEC catch you for malpractice outside the classroom? How do you do that in the examination center or assessment area?
Let me attend to that first. How do you catch candidates that cheated in the examination during the course of marking? We give them specifications. Write these things out. They are well taught. They are seasoned examiners. Some have been marking since the past 20 years, 30 years. Some mark not because of the money. There's one professor in UNILAG, Professor Mowete. He's a chief examiner. He does not take one kobo from us. Recently, we gave him an award. So these are seasoned examiners that want to improve the educational system of this country. And so,
What does he examine?
I think it's physics or something.
Physics.
So, you see, I'm not supposed to mention that here, but because it's on the positive side.
Yes.
And so, because we want to sanitize the system, do you agree that children who cheated in an examination should not have their result? Do you agree?
Yes.
Yes, of course.
Beautiful. So that's what WAEC is doing. And the public will now turn around now to be blaming the WAEC that why are you cancelling candidates' results? Because they cheated. You dictated to them in the examination of the hall. You wrote on the blackboard or the chalkboard, so we carry them. But when we go to the marking venue, all these things become very, very glaring.
All of them
they write the same thing. I was came yesterday.
Everybody writes the same thing.
I was came
The same
yesterday.
errors.
Where you cancelled.
You're
Came.
another person cancelled.
I have come. I have came. Everybody cancelled came. And wrote, and I come. So you see, these are the ways we carry them. Then somebody, you are writing an exam. You are having 3-4 different handwritings in the same script. Is it possible?
How possible is that?
That is it.
It's a miracle. It's a miracle. It's a miracle.
You do multiple choice questions. Everybody's got 70%,
That's
and
why I
all
told
of
you-
them scored the
That's why I told you we
the
have
same
IDP.
points. Yeah.
That's why I told you we have IDP. So that is how we detect examination malpractice and so many other ways, you know, at the marking venue. You just see a whole lot of them. They will just be writing the same thing. The teacher who feels that is helping these candidates is killing them.
In that kind of case, do you cancel the entire center?
So now what do we do? What do we do? When we don't punish, if 100 candidates wrote an exam in the same hall and 99 of them cheated, the sole candidate, remember, even if it's only one holy person, he will enter the kingdom of God. So that one candidate who did not cheat will have his or her
So
result
the other
fully
people
intact.
the other people had miracles, and the miracles were taken from them.
Yeah. So what do we do? This is the waiting period. Eh?
Yes.
This is the gestation period now.
Okay.
We told the result. That's why we call them.
In a few seconds, yeah.
That's why we call them withheld results. So
Okay.
we will now investigate. The staff committee, that is the WAEC staff committee, the National Office Staff Examination Committee, will first of all investigate and to sift the chaff from the grains.
Okay.
So those without solid evidence will be kept aside.
Right.
Those with evidence will now be pushed to the board. There is the Nigeria Examinations Committee comprising lecturers from some universities, comprising registrars of universities, comprising directors of education in the various state ministries of education. They will now look at them. They will say, okay, WAEC, we accept this one, we don't accept this one. We accept this one, we don't accept. So at the end of the day, those ones that will be left off the hook will have their results released. And that will be around November this year. Those who were eventually found guilty will have not just their entire results. Some, it depends on the rule. If you came into the exam hall, for example, with your cell phone, you will have the subject of that particular subject cancelled.
I know we are running out of time. I just wanted to know, do you guys identify the good schools, the good schools? Do you map the schools that do well? And the citizens, the students that do well, do you mark them and
we don't
them?
really do that marking unless when you ask us to do analysis for you.
Mapping. I mean.
Yes, we don't do mapping. We don't do mapping, but we know.
Okay.
We know. Some of us know.
All right.
that this is
What
a
we
good school,
have
this is
to
a bad
do-
school. If you want
yeah.
to do private candidates exam, I will advise you, please let your child sit the exam in a very good school. That's the only advice I can give.
All right. What we have to do, because there's so much. In fact, I understand there's a lot of viewership for this right now. We have to bring you back to discuss this some other time. Patrick Arigan, the head of Nigeria National Office of WAEC, thank you so much for coming on this
Thank you very
program.
much.
And
Thank you.
we will talk more as we bring you on to create enlightenment for people to understand WAEC the better. Thank you.
It's my pleasure.
Great.
Thank you very much.